So that's basically what I was saying, that we're a country that debunks, and also most of the, you'll see a few of the logos there. Well, if they watch me tonight or later on, they'll recognize themselves. Basically, there are many UFO debunkers in ufology in France. It's just it's so infected. They have managed to start fights between groups that were actually willing to investigate serious cases and also listen to ET experiencers in France. They're the first debunking. Well, you'll see a few of the debunkers there in the photos. They'll recognize themselves, and I won't name them. But there's, of course, it's all linked to the French government. You have the IHEDN, which is the basically a school for the defense sector officers, and there's also the 3AAF, which used to be the Commission Sigma. The Académie d'Ufologie is Ufology Academy, and they're all pretty much connected because they also brief some of them officers in the French military, especially the Air Force, and the SGDN, which is the National Defense General Secretary, is basically especially directing the whole all the efforts of the UFO debunkers who are making themselves known as true UFO researchers looking for the truth and disclosure, which is actually, you may know, they're in there to hide all sensitive information from the public eye, or basically take the disclosure movement or the disclosure timing and pace process to their credit, and they want to monitor it so that it helps their agenda. So all those insiders in ufology groups are creating conflicts between ufology associations and groups who are legitimate at first, and then they're being said, don't mention this, don't mention that. This information should not be out. This is not credible. There's no ET encounters. There's no ETs where man is the only species in the universe, and basically what they're doing in ufology is debunking. Basically, you know what debunking is. There's actually one guy in the photo here that was in I think it was in Vegas or in Phoenix at a UFO Congress, because the French government, actually, because they're all linked to the defense industry, the French government funds their UFO conferences around the world so that they can debunk all the cases. And actually, Paola Harris herself told me about this debunker here in the photo, who was, he's French, and he debunked the Innsville UFO sighting case from the 50s. And the photos, the black and white photos by the Innsville farmers, and actually everybody laughed at them because of course, back in the 50s, there was no Photoshop. Let's go to the next slide. So this is another strange case that involved in December, mid-December 2013. There was a witness that testified that a UFO or a TR-3B, which it was the description was matching the TR-3B, was hovering over the Thales Air Systems site in Forges-les-Bains, in France, that was developing, the Thales Air Systems basically developed some satellite and defense systems that's very advanced. And this witness actually talked about black helicopters from the gendarmerie, and also described a a UFO, a UFO that looked exactly like a TR-3B, and also he saw it twice, and he saw it flying over his house. So it's basically very significant of what the cooperation may have happened with the French defense industry on maybe on the secret space program level, and because they say that nothing happens in France, and there may be some back engineering or deals or recouped technology that was witnessed there, or maybe it was an extraterrestrial craft that was warning about the advanced satellite system that would have perturbed maybe or disturbed the whole planet. We don't know, but the description of this craft looks a little bit like the one by Barney and Betty Hill, but also looks like a TR-3B, like you can see on the pictures. Let's go to the next slide because we're not gonna go into depth. Okay, so this is this is very important because there's been UFO sightings which have been called drones over power plants all over France. All the power plants have been hovered, have been flown over, and there's been some total denial from the mainstream media and secrecy about those drones who were actually UFOs, because even a power plant director mentioned that he was they saw a UFO flying over the power plant. So it's been a big affair here, and many sites have been visited because the drones cannot fly that far in the no-fly zone around the power plant. Greenpeace even said it wasn't them because they blamed it on Greenpeace first, because they also demonstrated once and went inside penetrated a no entry zone in a power plant. So this was the big affair, but it was actually effective all over Europe. I believe power plants in Germany and somewhere else. I think in Belgium and Austria were visited also by those drones. So this was the big affair of the end of over a few months period. In France and the rest of Europe, power plants have been visited. So there's a lot of secrecies going on. Going on. Anything that's connected to nuclear energy is protected, is classified, is denied, because, as you know, France is pretty much the main lobby internationally with Areva in the nuclear power. Let's go to the next slide. And it's always been sensitive with the UFO phenomenon. So this nuclear submarine base in Brest in Brittany, called the Elong, it's not Long Island, but it's in Brittany. There's been many UFO drone sightings, and on the base we have reports of soldiers, military soldiers with missing times, and they were found in days, and with missing times and without their weapons sometimes on the base. And some beings that were not non-terrestrials were observed as well. We're not in sci-fi movie over here. We're in a real testimony through insider sources that we have. And it's not mainstream. It's totally confidential what I'm telling you, but it's now you'll know. Also, there's been some biolocation remote testing done with Google Earth mapping of this area, this submarine nuclear submarine site in Brittany by the British team that I work with, and the results are on the next slide, I believe. Yes. Okay. Yes. Well, let's go back to the previous slide, where we can show you where it's located. And that's what I was telling you. Drones or UFOs or drones FOs as we call them over here have been hovering over the nuclear submarine base. The French soldiers were found in a daze and with missing times on the base. Non-terrestrial beings were sighted among them, and you'll see on the map that it's near the Brest. The Brest area in the western part of Brittany. And okay, all right, let's go to the next. Oh, so those are the results, which is pretty amazing by the British dowsing team. What they've tested and what their findings are about, basically, is that they found the same traces of bismuth, this material used to block sensing, and also that there's some unearthly metals, non-terrestrial unearthly metals traces. They work with numbers. They work with some dowsing methods, with colors, with carbon-14. Once again, this is their methods, and it's been effective for decades with the British, the UK Police Department. So it's pretty effective with non-terrestrial substances and presence. It seems like there's a very large alien human. Let me see. I'm looking at the results here. This area has traces of alien abductions and also alien encounters. There's some sphere crafts that have been identified near this nuclear submarine base, and also some alien presence, unearthly metals, and also some strong response to antimatter in the area. Some anomalies respond in the arrows. You'll see the map. We'll post it afterwards. And also, which is kind of strange, it shows an area that leads, same as the vortex, the artificial vortex in Albion underground, to the Orion system. So it leads, there's an opening, a portal in this base. That's what was diagnosed and tested and found by this British team, a link to the Orion system. He saw the Orion symbol. So there's a link to the Orion constellation. Okay, let's go to the next slide. All right. So now let's talk about the Cometa report, because the Cometa report was very important as well, and that's as famous as the Japan overseas, and that's something that you believe is crucial, is very important, is major in French ufology. What is the Cometa report? Basically, it's a study, a 2-year military study that was published in 1999, and who put it together? It was entitled UFOs in Defense. What must we be prepared for? In French, Les ovnis et la défense. À quoi doit-on se préparer? This 90-page report is basically an in-depth study of UFOs, that covered many aspects of the subject, especially the questions, and that's very important, of national defense. So it's basically produced by a team, a military team, a former general. The study was carried out over several years by a supposedly independent group of former auditors at the Institute, which is what I was mentioning, and you saw the logo among the debunkers earlier of the IHEDN, which is linked to the defense industry and the national security. The Advanced Studies for National Defense, or IHEDN, and by qualified experts from various fields. And before it was released publicly, it was sent to the French president back then, Jacques Chirac, and to the prime minister, Lionel Jospin. And the report was prefaced by General Bernard Merlin of the Air Force and the former IHEDN director. And it begins with a preamble by André Lebeau, who's the former president of the National Center for Space Studies, the CNES, also the French NASA. So it's all government linked and all government information and sponsored by the government, the French equivalent of NASA. The group itself, collective author of the report, is an association of experts, many of whom are and have been auditors of the IHEDN, or it's presided over by General Denis Letty of the Air Force, former auditor of the IHEDN. So what's the result? That that report didn't make a large audience. It didn't reach a large audience. It was published in VSD, which was a newspaper, a magazine back then, and didn't reach that many people in France. I believe that they reach more people overseas than in France. It's kind of like the Japon thing, and it's a military study. So what's their conclusion? The conclusion is we should be scared of what's out there coming at us as a national security. Our air defense system is inoperable, is not efficient. We need more budgets to fight the hypothetical invader. They may be a danger. Sounds like Stephen Hawking's latest quotes. Like they could be dangerous. So that's basically the Cometa report, a 3-year military study on UFOs. It's all French intel, it's all French military, and it's all geared towards spending and asking for more budgets for the military. So it's also, there's a parallel we can draw with Ronald Reagan, space shield, the space war, secret space program, budgeting that he pushed. That's an agenda he pushed. And in France, we had the Cometa report, which was supposed to make more of a hit with the French audience, but they didn't care that much. Let's go to the next slide. Oh, so this is the very sensitive information and a scoop. Dr. Stephen Greer, and we're waiting for his fax confirmation. A friend of mine is going to get his fax confirmation from the article that was published recently. Stephen Greer made contact with ETs for the French Ministry of Defense, and there's a fax copy that was sent to Dr. Greer, was asking for a CE5 meeting with Greer, and it confirms that the French officials actually saw aliens. So that was the big scoop, basically. Let's go to the next slide. All right, we can see a few names in ufology that we recognize in our end here. I know they're not going to be happy to see themselves on this slideshow, but it's not important. The truth is important. what I wanted to say is basically that the main characters mentioned in the document, Stephen Greer's document, are Pierre Morin, which who we haven't been able to find who he was back then, but he was probably part of the MOD as well. So it was ordered by the Ministry of Defense by Pierre Morin, Alain Boudier, who's also part of the 3AF, the group that I mentioned earlier, with Jean-Gabriel Grillet, and also Philippe de la Messurière. He is mentioned in the, all those guys are mentioned in the Cometa report. So there's also an agency that is supposed to collect samples and analyze chemicals and organic samples and also non-terrestrial artifacts and implants. That's called the Sporade, where Alain Boudier is linked to, and which we have here. What we have here is Philippe de la Messurière is an intel agent that worked for the French intelligence. Is also part of the Cometa report, and was very close with Dr. Michael Wolff, whom you may know, who worked for the U.S. defense industry for a while on the secret space program and projects, and also extraterrestrial connected projects. And this Parade agency is listed online, and we have witnesses that actually testified, and that I won't name them, but that some samples and also hypnotic regression videos and also artifacts were kept and held back from them by this agency, or people who were connected to this agency, which is all basically intel, French intel. So what does Stephen Greer says? He says, and you'll see the photo there. It's on the slideshow. That's that the French MOD contacted aliens during a bizarre experiment. It was in the UK Express newspaper online. Dr. Greer, who claims also that he's threatened by Men in Black on a weekly basis, he said that top French MOD officials summoned an alien craft in 2010 during a CE5 session. And it was confirmed on radar, that's what he says, as passing overhead at 120,000 miles per hour. He also claimed that an alien ambassador from the Andromeda galaxy partially materialized in front of the French leaders during the experiment on a sealed-off 220-acre estate. It had a no-fly zone above to prevent any normal aircraft passing. So what do we have here? We have officials, intel agents. We have the Cometa report guys. We have Alain Boudier, who was part of the Sigma Commission and the 3AF. We have Jean-Gabriel Grillet, and who else do we have? We have another debunker who was at the UFO Congress in the U.S. Debunking the Innsville Farmer UFO sighting in front of a panel of American UFO researchers who laughed at him. And we have also in the group there of the Commission Sigma, we have a famous astronaut, Jean-François Clairvoy, who's flown on the space shuttle a couple times. So we have all the French NASA guys. We have the so-called former officers, military and defense, UFO researchers who are all linked to French intel and the French government. So just think back a second and evaluate the information that they can put out. They've actually testified that they have met they've never testified or officially testified that they have met with Dr. Greer or attended a CE5 session yet. But that's the scoop for the evening. But there'll be a lot more in the future, in future shows, where I'll bring on some speakers from France, and I'll translate back and forth, or from all over Europe. So there's some real French experiencers in France. I can attest to that because I've been interviewing quite a few of them. I've also met with Free, which is a group presided by Ray Hernandez and Edgar Mitchell, who wants to be a support group for experiencers, and I'm offering their support and their backing over here to the experiencers who want to testify and have somebody to talk to that is not government intel, that is not defense industry, that is not going to keep and hold back their implants or non-terrestrial samples or materials or any testimonies or hypnotic regressions from them, and give them credit for their experiences, and be respectful of their status as experiencers, because they know the truth about alien and ET and star being encounters. The Sporade Agency, like as I said, I don't know if we can go to the next slide. Yes, that's the one. That's an agency that's listed, and that is basically retaining and analyzing those non-terrestrial materials, and it's an official agency. It's sort of like the the Men in Black over here, huh? Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, I guess we can wrap this up within an hour, and it's pretty good for a first show. Solutions. What are the solutions to all this? The first thing is basically for French experiencers over here in France and anywhere in the world, not to be afraid of coming forward and testifying and talk about, share their experiences, and because not everyone is a government agent or is intel or is a UFO debunker. It's not because we're in a transition period. We have to stop living in fear, and the elites are losing control over the ET experiencers and close encounters and the contact phenomenon. They're trying to hold it back from the public and the masses over here, worldwide and in France, but they're losing control, basically. Like Paulo Coelho used to say, telling the truth and making someone cry is better than telling a lie and making someone smile. So we can handle the truth, and it's your right to say no. And I'm not asking you to go against anything. I'm asking you to circumvent and avoid confrontation with those people, even dealing with those people. If you feel that the people are not legit or not benevolent and that want to get your testimony as an experiencer, or if you have seen a UFO, just don't go and waste your time and your energy testifying with these people, because more than half of them are probably government intel over here. At least everything is controlled by the government. So it's basically part of your spiritual contract. You have the right to get the truth out, get the truth out, and basically, like I was saying, the solutions is basically to share your experiences with everyone, because it's crucial. It's a major step towards acknowledgement and recognition of our multiverse and our human existence throughout throughout the cosmos. We're not the only ones. We don't come from here. We are probably more than likely a genetic experiment, and more information are pertaining towards are tending towards this information to come out. But the elites are trying to put their hands on all this information and make it sensitive and classify it and take it away from the French public. The last slide is basically the solutions. The solutions is to gain your sovereignty back. It's pretty easy. You say no to the lords of karma. Basically, that's go back to your spiritual contract, or connect yourself to your higher self. And the key is to raise your vibration. You cannot go against a well-funded, archon powered matrix that is artificial, and that is trying to lower your frequencies and your vibrational level. You have to do anything possible to share your experiences and share your convictions and your what you really feel inside within yourselves, to express what's important to you, which is living in a peaceful world where everyday mainstream media is pounding us with warmongering information, with false flags. We've had our share of false flags in France, from Charlie's event, Charlie Hebdo false flag, to the Thales train false flag with the so-called heroes and GIs who took down a dangerous terrorist coming out of the bathroom. And we had another false flag recently of two teenagers who were in the bathroom, and they talked about a terrorist attack or threat. And it turned out that it was just two kids who didn't pay for their tickets in the train. So every day we have those crazy false flags who have been programmed to lower our frequency. And just look beyond that. Just unplug your TV, or don't watch the news, the mainstream news, and tune into Carrie Cassidy's Project Camelot TV show. I'll be on next month, every month, and I'll be happy to present you other topics and of UFO investigation field in France or in Europe in general, or I'll have a guest over. It depends. We'll see. That's a surprise. I was really glad to meet with you tonight, and looking forward to next month. Thank you. Have a good evening. Talk to you soon. At first, and then they were being said, don't mention this, don't mention that. This information should not be out. This is not credible. There's no ET encounters. There's no ETs where man is the only species in the universe, and basically what they're doing in ufology is debunking. Basically, you know what debunking is. There's actually one guy in the photo here that was in I think it was in Vegas or in Phoenix at a UFO Congress, because the French government, actually, because they're all linked to the defense industry, the French government funds their UFO conferences around the world so that they can debunk all the cases. And actually, Paola Harris herself told me about this debunker here in the photo, who was, he's French, he debunked the Innsville UFO sighting. The SGDN, which is the National Defense General Secretary, is basically especially directing the whole all the efforts of the UFO debunkers who are making themselves known as true UFO researchers looking for the truth and disclosure, which is actually, you may know, they're in there to hide all sensitive information from the public eye, or basically take the disclosure movement, or the disclosure timing and pace process to their credit, and they want to monitor it so that it helps their agenda. So all those insiders in ufology groups are creating conflicts between ufology associations and groups who are legitimate case from the 50s. And the photos, the black and white photos by the Innsville farmers, and actually everybody laughed at them because of course, back in the 50s there was no Photoshop. Let's go to the next slide. So this is another strange case that involved in December, mid-December 2013. There was a witness that testified that a UFO or a TR-3B, which it was the description was matching the TR-3B, was hovering over the Thales Air Systems site in Forges-les-Bains in France, that was developing. The Thales Air Systems basically developed some satellite and defense systems, serious cases, and also listen to ET experiencers in France. They're the first debunking. Well, you'll see a few of the debunkers there in the photos. They'll recognize themselves, and I won't name them. But there's, of course, it's all linked to the French government. You have the IHEDN, which is the basically a school for the defense sector officers, and there's also the 3AAF, which used to be the Commission Sigma. The Académie d'Ufologie is Ufology Academy, and they're all pretty much connected because they also brief some of them officers in the French military, especially the Air Force, and so that's basically what I was saying, that we're a country that debunks, and also most of the, you'll see a few of the logos there. Well, if they watch me tonight or later on, they'll recognize themselves. Basically, there are many UFO debunkers in ufology in France. It's just it's so infected. They have managed to start fights between groups that were actually willing to investigate